welcome to another edition of Straight Talk. Well, it is election season now, and while we're all familiar with elections for mayor and Congress and Senate and those types of positions, one of the types of elections that often gets overlooked is the election for our judges. And this year we have not only our normal election campaigns for judicial positions in Jefferson County, but we also have a constitutional amendment with relation to whether to sustain and keep our family courts. So we're going to talk about those subjects with our guests. We have Melissa Metzger, who's the 2002 chair of the Judicial Forum, Judge Stephen George, who's the district judge of family court, and William Tingley, who is an attorney in town and assistant Jefferson County attorney. And welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit first about this year's elections. And the Judicial Forum is actually a forum where the candidates for judge are going to appear in October. Tell us a little bit about that, Melissa.
Yes, John. What it is, the Judicial Forum is a forum set up by the Women Lawyers Association in conjunction with our co-sponsors, the National Council of Jewish Women Louisville Section, League of Women Voters of Jefferson County and Louisville. And it will be a section where all the candidates will appear. The candidates will be on stage together, the two candidates who are opposing one another for each judicial slot. They will each be given an opportunity to describe themselves for about a minute to tell why the public should vote for them. And then each candidate will be given two questions and will be given 2 minutes to respond to each question. These questions are designed to first show how the judges think on their feet, because anyone who's been in court knows there's not a lot of time for a judge to sit and ponder, especially the district court and family court judges. Decisions need to be made quickly, and they need to be made accurately. And also, they will cover topics that will appear in front of either district court or family court judges, and this will show the public how these judges react to those issues that they're likely to see on a day-to-day basis.
Now, I know when back in the days when I was involved in politics and used to go to these political meetings, and the judicial candidates would get up there and basically say, I'm so-and-so, I'm running for this district, and I'm a good guy or I'm a good woman, because there are canons of ethics about what you can say and what you can't say, because you can't talk about how you might rule on a particular issue. How do you skirt, in this forum, how do you skirt those prohibitions about getting close to issues they might have to render decisions about?
The questions will be framed in a more general nature. We certainly do not want to run afoul of any of the canons of judicial ethics or the election rules concerning electing judicial judges to their positions. However, these will be a variety of topics that will occur in front of these judges on a day-to-day basis. Issues such as treatment of women and children and gender issues before district court, custody issues before family court, abuse and neglect issues, and how those things would be handled or how they should be handled by a particular candidate.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know Judge George here is unopposed for re-election, but is bound by those restrictions, so he's going to have to be careful about what he can say about this. But it's, as just a lay person out there looking at these things, what are the types of qualities I should look for? To the extent that I can get it in a campaign or watching the forum, what are the qualities that I should look for as a voter in choosing a judge? I know a lot of people just rely on the Courier.
Judge, what should you look for?
A lot of people just rely. They take the list of the Courier Journal and trust them because it's a tough thing to get information.
Let me take the judge out of the middle if I could. As a practitioner, as one who speaks for the people who are appearing before Judge George, I can tell you that first and foremost, you are looking for an experienced, in the case of a family court judge, an experienced family law practitioner. Someone who has actually spent years standing in front of a judge practicing the type of case that the candidate now seeks to be elected to, the judgeship to, excuse me. I think that is the first and foremost priority. What kind of practice do they have? As well-intended as a candidate might be, a person who perhaps comes out of totally a probate law background, running for a family court judgeship, you know, look for the connection there. Why? What's going on here versus someone who has more experience.
So that really would be the key is background. You wouldn't want somebody who's been a plaintiff's attorney, a personal injury lawyer in family court.
They may be a fantastic plaintiff's lawyer. And the skills involved, at least from this side of the bench, in being a judge, can be picked up practicing trial work, in other courts certainly, but indeed, the family law cases especially are the type of cases where quick decisions, good decisions do need to be made. Emotions run high in the courtroom, so the ability to control the parties and the attorneys is important, and there's really only one place you learn that, and that's practicing in front of the judge.
And I would add one thing. Of course, I practiced for 23 years, and I've been on the bench for about 2 years, but I received a significant number of phone calls from clients before election time and asking me for whom I should vote for one of the judge spots. So I would urge the listeners to not hesitate to call their own attorney, somebody they feel real comfortable with. They may have some insight. If they don't, they don't.
I know that it's consistently year in and year out a very tough job to get everybody to focus on the judicial races because they're not the ones that are high profile. They're not spending thousands of dollars on television time that last week. Why is it so important that we worry about who the judges are?
Well, for most people, the judges are the only elected official whom they will encounter in their daily lives. From a traffic ticket to a divorce or a custody matter to the probate of a will or an intestacy case if someone dies without a will, these are the people who are going to make decisions affecting your everyday lives. The district court judges, I believe, sit for 8 years, and that's a long time to affect a person on a day-to-day basis. And this is the only opportunity the average citizen has to determine who is going to make those decisions that are going to affect them on a day-to-day basis in their everyday lives.
Now, I know when I go in to vote, my election, the poll worker always says, don't forget the judicial races there on the back of the ballot. Is that the case pretty much consistently throughout the county? Are people pretty much sensitized to be aware of those extra races?
I believe they are, but one thing that is important to remember, people are becoming a little more interested in the judicial races. In the past primary, one judicial race by itself outdrew all other races combined. Well, not all of the races combined, but outdrew the mayoral race, which I found astonishing considering that the mayoral race is going to start our new government. But the race for the 12th district seat outdrew the mayoral race by several thousand votes. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. Clearly, the public is becoming aware that judges do affect them and are interested in those people who will be serving them. One thing I'd like to point out about the Judicial Forum, this is the only time, to our knowledge, that all 16 judicial candidates, that's the 4 for the family court races and the 12 for the district court races, will be appearing at the same time for the public to vote for them, or for the public to view them and to determine who they wish to vote for.
Now, how do the judicial races in terms of who can vote for whom in which races? Is there every candidate, every one of these races, every voter in Jefferson County has a choice in all of these races, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. A tough question to ask, I think. At least it was for me. I know that there was some confusion in the primary. There always is, because people say, I can't vote in the primary if I'm registered independent. I can't vote in the judicial races. They think but that's the one race they can vote in.
Yes.
Also explain how the primary works, because I know people who will have voted for a losing candidate who didn't finish first in the spring may end up seeing that name on the ballot again.
The way the primary works is it's a runoff election. Let's say, for example, one particular race has 4 candidates vying for that judicial seat. In the primary, there's a runoff, and the top 2 vote getters out of those 4 then proceed on to the November election, and those are the 2 people who you are voting for who actually hold the seat.
Right. Steve mentioned one of the ways you might get information about a candidate is by asking your attorney. Are there other ways that you can get information about the candidates running for these offices if they happen to miss the judicial forum, which I know that after watching this show they won't, but...
Well, from our perspective, our 2 co-sponsors, the League of Women Voters and the National Council of Jewish Women, will have information on their website concerning both the Judicial Forum as well as the candidates. Additionally, they can get information from Insight on the candidates.
One other thing I want to get to before we move to family court after the break is this whole issue of voting for judges. Most states have some form of system where there is voter choice in judicial races. But there is also a question about that as to whether that's the best way to choose judges, and I know there are some hybrid systems as well. What's your sense of that? Is it?
I think that the further removed from the democratic process we get anytime we put elected officials in such an important position as a judgeship or a legislature, the more dangerous territory we run on. You're referring to what they call the Missouri system, where a judicial seat will become available. A governor usually will make an appointment. That appointee is usually recommended by a search committee of some kind, specially designed to review the qualifications of the judge. And then in some systems, it's put to a popular vote. In other systems, it's reviewed before judiciary committees of the legislature. You can argue it both ways. Certainly, the specialized search committee hopefully, weeds out or brings to the surface the most qualified candidates. But in the end, voters will still be confronted with a choice. And I think the way we do it right now is, having that choice democratically made initially is really a good system.
I know in some areas I've read about, and I don't know that it's happened in Kentucky, there has been an issue and a problem with third parties kind of making claims about entering races and making the types of things, saying the types of things about candidates that the candidates can't say themselves, either negative about an opponent or positive in order to advance a philosophical agenda. Is that something that we haven't seen much of that in Kentucky, if I'm aware of it, but is there any mechanism in place to kind of stop that before it starts?
No mechanism I'm aware of. The United States Supreme Court just recently came down with a decision which really brings into some interesting question our canons of ethics in terms of what a judicial candidate can say. Elections are a fundamental part of the American experience in a democracy. The United States Supreme Court basically said, look, in a democracy, people get to talk about issues, and that includes judicial candidates. Now, that's the United States Supreme Court, and while it certainly is authoritative over all of us, our canons of ethics are still in place, as far as I know, as regards those issues.
Yes, we received a letter from the Judicial Ethics Committee that the canons were still being enforced because our canons differed slightly from those that were challenged and ruled on by the Supreme Court.
Okay. Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about family court, and Steve gets to say something more. Stay with us. We'll be back in a minute with Melissa Metzger, Stephen George, and William Tingley. Welcome back. We're talking about judicial elections, and we're going to turn our attention now to a very important vote that will occur this November, and that's on a constitutional amendment to improve family courts as part of the Constitution. Now, I think people probably might assume that since family court's been around for a while, that it's already a cut and dry deal, that it's permanent, but that's not the case, is it?
It's really not by any means. This has been a project that has gone on for about 11 years now, and we are at a truly critical stage. Our Constitution requires an amendment to allow the family court to continue, and we must have the vote of the citizens of Jefferson County to keep going with this very worthwhile project.
And so you're going to have essentially every citizen in the Commonwealth voting on this.
That is correct.
But this doesn't necessarily affect every citizen in the Commonwealth. Is that also correct?
Well, it's going to affect most people. I mean, family courts have been created since 1991. We started in Jefferson County. We hear an extraordinary number of cases. If the amendment is approved by the voters, then in addition to the 19 counties where family courts have already been established as pilot projects, the possibility exists if the state legislature and the Supreme Court agree to create family courts in other jurisdictions.
Let's see, they're 19 in existence now. When this if the amendment were to fail, I know a lot of the material that I read about this says that seems to be some doubt as to what would happen. Is it a sure thing that if the amendment fails, the family courts will be dissolved and Steve will have to find another job, or what?
Well, I'll answer that question. The reason the amendment is necessary is because in the Cuprion case, a case that came out of Jefferson County, the Supreme Court decided that family courts were constitutional because we were a pilot project. In Kentucky, we have 4 tiers of judges and courts: district court, circuit court, court of appeals, and Supreme Court. And we in family court are a hybrid of that court. We hear domestic violence cases, we hear paternity cases, and we hear cases where children have been neglected or are dependent or abused that traditionally are heard by the district court. And then we hear divorce cases and adoptions and termination of parental rights that are heard by the circuit court. So we're sworn in both as district judges and circuit judges to hear all of those cases. If the amendment does not pass, the Supreme Court could, and I don't know what would happen, but the Supreme Court could wait until the next case went to the Supreme Court and decide then whether the courts are constitutional.
I think it's fair to say that their status post-November 5th, should the amendment fail, will be very much in question. And that's not a good thing. We're talking about a court which specializes in family issues. We took all the family-related cases, pulled them out of circuit court, pulled them out of district court, and gave them the kind of priority that they deserve. And with the priority, the underlying psychological piece is hopefully to move the children, whether it's in a divorce or domestic violence or dependency abuse, move them through the system more quickly so that we can enhance their stability. So to put us in a position on November 6th where, we've got to rely upon an appeal or we have to disband, it really takes us back a decade at least.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what the situation was prior to 1991, and because obviously people might wonder, well, there's got to be another side of it. What is the other side of it?
Well, I can tell you the advantage to family court by giving you an example. Shortly after I was appointed to the bench and was appointed by the Chief Justice to family court, I had a case where a custodial parent filed a motion to suspend the visitation privileges of the non-custodial parent. A motion was filed. They were already divorced, so a post-divorce motion was filed. In addition, it was alleged that there was domestic violence against the child, so a domestic violence petition was filed. Both of those cases, because we in Kentucky are one family, one court, one judge, both of those cases came to me. Historically, one of those would have gone to a district court, one would have gone back to the circuit judge who heard the case. I scheduled a hearing the next day. I had a 2-hour hearing. Because the visitation was coming up on Friday, I made my decision, wrote my opinion, faxed it to the lawyers. They received it on Thursday, and Thursday night, the custodial parent, unhappy with my decision, took out an emergency custody order. That came to me on Friday, and I said, has anything changed since I heard this case on Tuesday? It was, again, a third case based on the same fact situation. Under the old system, that would have been 3 different judges hearing the same fact situation and possibly inconsistent decisions.
And I assume that the scheduling could not have been expedited in anywhere close to that.
That's right.
Timetable that you dealt with. Is there any organized opposition to this amendment? Is this a matter of just getting the votes out, or is there really an issue here?
There's no organized opposition that we are aware of in Jefferson County. Anyone who follows politics in Jefferson County or in Kentucky understands that the electorate is reluctant to amend the Constitution, as they should be. It's a big deal. But here is a case where the amendment of the Constitution moves us forward. And the truth is, the family court project that we have here in Jefferson County is a model project. We have judges coming in from all over the country, as far away as Hawaii, to see how we do it, to design their own court systems consistent with ours. And that's a good feather in our cap. That's got to tell you that we're doing something right. It's good when our state is known for positive, forward-thinking behavior, and certainly family court is one of those instances.
Tell me a little bit about the dimensions of the work that you do, how many people are impacted, how many cases you hear, because that's obviously something that probably the average person has no idea about.
Well, we have about 2,000 new filings each year per judge. So that's 18,000 new cases roughly each year, and those are on the dependency cases or divorce cases. It's pretty hard for us to track divorce cases because they don't ever go away if there are children or if there are other issues that need to be reviewed. So in addition to those 2,000 new cases per year per judge, we continue to hear the other cases that have that can never be ultimately resolved until the child is 18 or out of high school.
And I guess this goes to your point, Melissa, that people out there who are thinking about this topic ought to realize that there's a reasonable chance that they're going to be involved in one of these hearings before one of these judges.
Yes, John. Statistics show that 50% of all marriages end in divorce. With the way the family court is set up now, all the other issues that come along with divorce are all handled in one court. If that were to and that saves time and money for both the court system. One judge is familiar with the facts. Another judge doesn't have to learn the same set of facts, or even a third judge learn the same set of facts. And it saves time and money for the litigants or the participants, because those individuals might be inclined to hire different attorneys for different actions, or would at least have to have an attorney appear 2 or 3 or more times in front of different judges, spend that much time educating that judge about the background of that case. So it all ties into the importance of these elections.
And I guess also in terms of qualifications, and again, the type of person who's sitting in this type of a proceeding, if you don't have a distinctive court, then you have people who, again, may be our plaintiff's attorney, may be great lawyers, but have no real sensitivity to the family problem.
Well, exactly so. And, in the federal system, we've had specialized courts for decades: bankruptcy court, maritime court, tax court. I mean, we have long recognized when you create a specialty court, a couple things happen. You create a court where lawyers can make a living by practicing just one area of the law, and so they get better and better at it, and that benefits the public. They get a better service for their dollar. Judges also get to specialize, and so you get better and better decision making. This is not to say that a non-family court judge wouldn't make a good decision, but you understand what I'm saying. If I could, there is a backside to this as well that I think is important, and that is, if the amendment doesn't pass, if these cases are put back into the pond, if you will, of all other litigation, it is going to have an impact on those plaintiffs' lawyers and on those defense lawyers and on that criminal practice, because now the divorce cases and the custody cases are going to be mixed back into their circuit court docket. The paternity cases, the emergency protective orders, domestic violence and such, will be mixed back into the district court practice. So, as we think about the ripple effect of what we do here, failure to pass the amendment is really going to ripple out into other parts of the judicial system.
And
I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say that I don't think there's much dispute that these types of cases are very emotional and they're very difficult, and they take a huge toll on judges. You read about burnout in family court, but or in family law matters, but that's generally for people who don't want to be there. The judges that want to be there, and we have 9 of us that want to be there, the judges that want to be there understand the complexities of those cases. They understand the emotional toll that those take and can better handle the stress associated with that. The people get a quicker decision. We can get a full-day custody trial heard in family court as of July 1. In every court, all 9, we could assign a trial of a full day within 3 months. That's incredible if the cases go back to circuit court.
We just have a couple minutes left. Melissa, you were going to say something?
I just wanted to add neither the Judicial Forum or the women lawyers are here to endorse any particular candidate or the amendment. We think it's very important, though, that these gentlemen and others are out there educating the public about the ramifications of both passage and not passing this amendment.
Right. And that was actually a very nice segue, because that was what I was going to ask you. What efforts are being made to get the word out about this other than being on shows like this?
Well, and we appreciate shows like this very much. We've actually been working now for several months. We've got a publications committee, we've got a speakers bureau, many lawyers involved in getting out. We were at the state fair, I guess are at the state fair, and getting in every publication we can get. We've done a segment on Inside Family Court with Chief Justice. There'll be some more of that. I expect some radio time.
Okay. Well, we've got less than a minute left, so I want to urge everyone else out there to get out there and vote on this amendment. And Melissa, give us again the details on the Judicial Forum, because that's important.
The Judicial Forum will be held on October 10th at the Humana building on the 25th floor in the Humana Auditorium. That's at 500 West Main Street from 11:30 to 1:30. Tickets must be purchased in advance with advance reservation, because Humana requires a list of persons entering their building. For more information, you can contact the websites of the National Council of Jewish Women or the League of Women Voters, or you can contact me at 589-2200. Tickets may be purchased at the Women Lawyers Association, Post Office Box 70271, Louisville, Kentucky 40270, 0271.
Great. Got it all in. Melissa, Steve, George, Bill Tingley, thanks for being with us. It's a very important topic, and we appreciate you sharing your information with us.
Thank you, John.
And join us next time for the next edition of Straight Talk. We'll see you then.